This is DanReviews, where I tell you what the movie's about so that you don't have to watch it. Unless you want to. Today, we'll be talking about The Fast and the Furious. A crew of street racers hijack a semi-truck on a highway. Brian O'Connor drives a car on a track and almost lost it. He goes to a restaurant called Toretto's.
Bruh.
Some street racing cars pull up. They are tricked out. One of them confronts Brian and they fight in the street. The waitress, Mia, yells at some guy in the restaurant and tells him to stop the fight. Dom stops the fight. He calls Brian's boss to get him fired. I guess he's someone important or something. That night, Brian goes to the street race scene. Girls and cars. Brian says that he wants to race. All the cars assemble for a street race. Ja Rule is racing and he gets 2 women if he wins the race. The race starts. Brian is at the end. Ja Rule starts to lose and yells, "Monica!"
Bruh.
Brian uses the NOS and his car almost falls apart, but he gets second place. Ja Rule gets dissed by Monica. Brian thinks he almost had Dom, but Dom roasts him. The cops are coming. Everyone bails. Dom gets away easily, but a cop recognizes him, and now he's running from a cop car. Brian shows up and tells him to get in. They get away from the cops. Some bikers make them follow them to some place. They tell them that Dom isn't supposed to be on this side of town. They shoot up the car and leave. Dom had a bad business deal, and now they have beef with him. They walk back to Dom's place, where a party is happening or something. Vince is mad that Brian is there, but Dom stands up for him since he helped him get away. Dom and Letty go upstairs. Mia talks to Brian. She takes him home. The next day, Brian is pulled over. We find out that Brian is working undercover. They're trying to find out who is stealing the DVD players.
Bruh.
Brian brings them a car to fix up, and now he is working in the shop with Toretto when he's not on his other job. Vince shows up at the Toretto house but walks away when he sees Brian there. They all eat and fellowship. Then Vince finally comes back.
None of your damn business.
Brian talks with Mia and asks her to go out. She agrees to go out with him. Hector shows up at Brian's other job asking for a bunch of parts and equipment. Brian seems suspicious. He breaks into a shop and checks on some tires. We find out that it is Hector's shop. Dom and Vince find him and confront him. They accuse him of being a cop. Brian tries to make up a story. So now they are going to all the competition's garages to check out what they got before race wars.
What the fuck?
While they're in one of the shops, Johnny Tran shows up and is aggressive with the shop guy. Brian meets the cops and they're trying to pin down which crew is stealing the DVD players.
Bruh.
Dom shows him some cool cars and talks about how his dad passed away. He was there when it happened. He told Brian about the guy that he almost killed that put him in jail. Brian takes Mia out to dinner. They talk about some things and then she drives. He ends up in Mia's bed. He gets a call about another shipping container getting hijacked. Dom and Letty make out in the garage.
That's nasty.
The cops roll up on Johnny Tran and gang. They are accusing them of stealing the DVD players. They find out that Johnny Tran had his DVD players legally, and now the cops are mad at Brian.
Bruh.
They think it's Toretto, and they want Brian to find out ASAP. Brian races some car on the street while they are on their way to the beach. Brian puts on a show acting like he's mad and he wants to know how Dom gets his money to see if he can get information about the DVD players. Dom gives him directions to Race Wars and told him he wants to see how he does there first. At Race Wars, Letty beats some douchebag. Jesse races Johnny Tran. He loses and now Tran wants the car. He tells Dom that the SWAT came to his house and says that Dom was a narc. Dom beats up Tran. Later that night, Mia gets mad at Dom. Brian tells her that he's a cop and she's mad.
None of your damn business.
He tells her that she's the only one that can help because the cops are coming for them. Dom, Letty, Vince, and crew go to do some job. Everyone says that they shouldn't do it, but Dom still wants to do it. Brian and Mia drive to them. Dom and friends hijack a semi-truck. The driver has a shotgun and tries to shoot Vince. Dom attempts to save Vince, but it's not going good. Letty tries to stop the truck, but she gets flipped over. Vince is still trying to get off the truck. Dom's car is getting shot up and he has to pull over. Brian and Mia show up to save Vince. They get away at the last minute before the driver shoots the shotgun. Brian reveals that he is a cop by calling in for help to save Vince. The crew all leave with Dom once Vince is on his way to the hospital. Brian confronts Dom in front of his house. They yell at each other. Jesse shows up and apologizes for running away after the race. Johnny Tran does a drive-by shooting. Brian chases Tran as they shoot at him. Dom also chases him. He stops one of the bad guys. Johnny Tran gets away. Brian follows Dom. They race in the streets. They try to get across the railroad. They race in the streets. They try to get across the railroad tracks as the train comes. They both narrowly escape. A random truck pulls out of nowhere and crashes into Dom. Brian gives him his car and lets him escape.